Hello, this is going to be a quick introduction to Perimeter 2.0, as a lot of stuff has changed and, well, showing it is kind of fun. So let's just start with this. This shouldn't be too long of a video, just quick and short to show what's new and what's possible now. So yeah, these are the panels right now. There is technically 4 new panels as one has been completely redone. But yeah, so what we had before is the load game materials panel. This is the same as before. Have a proper material, press button, get shader and everything set up. We won't be talking about this. It's going to be in the docs once I get around finishing the docs. But yeah, but new panels are once mod compiler. This was QC file tools before. It's now just mod compiler. It essentially allows you to, well, press a single button and have the model compiled, the RPEX made for it, done stuff that is like quality of life, like overwriting CD materials, like exporting all the RPEX of all selected materials in the scene, and overwriting the max words. This is a problem on some models with too many vertices. Yeah, we will come back to this shortly. There's also now QC file management, we will get to this, and body group manager, which is currently disabled because we have not selected the QC file, but let's just start with game materials, which is under material management. As you can see, there is nothing beside a single button. So let's say you have this body material here of the weapon that you want to pack into an RPEG. Now, before, without Perimeter, you would have made a JSON file and tracked that onto RPEG.exe, made sure that all your stuff is converted. With this, however, with Perimeter and especially 2.0, you just add the material. You see that it's now in a list here. And now you set up the empty RPEG shader for this thing. It then makes you this little menu. Here you can select export an RPEG. Basically, if this is turned off, this material will not be exported into an RPEG. If it's on, it's gonna be exported, and now you see that there is a lot of stuff here. There's actually way more, but it's not shown. There are these little buttons for it, but let's just quickly glance over what all of this means. So basically you have this. You can then show the texture slots where you can put in your textures. Normally all we use for normal materials mostly is like the first 5 and then AO and cavity and sometimes OPA. But yeah. Now, the cool thing about the new version of Perimeter is that we actually use the refactor branch of repack with this. It will not work with the old repack, only with the refactor branch and only with a small custom version of it, which is available on my GitHub in a link below. So yeah, what can you do here? Well, the first thing you see is that there is a lot of stuff here, especially these two buttons, import.pma and export.pma. With Perimeter 2.0, there is actually now a custom small file format for Perimeter materials. So let me just demonstrate this for you, for example. Let's say you have all of these things, like you have surface types, you can select here, you have the type, the shader set, samplers. I would not recommend you to change these if you don't know what you're doing. You can experiment, however, but most of the time it will just crash the game. There is stuff like this tint here, which works, but yeah, there's the blend states here, and there is some more special shader properties, which most of the time you will not need to touch. Most of the time you won't touch anything here. The default stuff is set up in a way that it will always make a material that just works with nothing special. But let's say, for example, that you want hair. So, for example, I have this little material here. You see that it's called hair 0. And I will obviously have some sample.pma files also available to make this shown better. Let's say you have hair, so at the hair material you can now see that it's not set up, so we set it up. And let's say I share you a material for hair. What you can now do, and this is I think a big feature that enables so much more, is essentially press this import button. Then you go into the folder where you have your stuff shared, the PMA files. You see I have hair PMA here. I press this. And as soon as I press it, there is stuff changed here. Like the blend states change, there are some changes here. Let's just go to the other material and you can immediately see that some stuff is different. So yeah, basically this file format allows you to share materials you made and load them again. So you don't have to enter stuff here each time you do something. Instead, You can just say, hey, I like this material here, let me export this. So I press export and I say new here, and then it says file saved here. It's gonna save the .pma, and you can always restore this, which I think is amazing, and it works, and I'm proud of it. It works. It saves essentially everything here except for the texture slots, because, well, that they are not part of the material per se. So yeah, but that's basically one of the most massive changes to this. This allows for customizing the material to like a degree we never had before. You can now make proper animated RPEX stuff. You can make fur and hair. You can make more shiny stuff with other custom shaders and so much more. I'm experimenting a lot with this, so I will, whenever I get some cool new material stuff, I will probably just share the .pma file and anybody can use it. That's why I made this system. It's much more comfortable and it's basically Pocket presets. It just works. Okay, so let's just remove this right now because we don't need this anymore. And let me just show you something more. Because there's actually, if you have seen this, there's this little button, overwrite material. For this, we will need to select the QC file. So let me go to mod compiler, and in here you can see select QC file. The same button is, by the way, also here. So yeah, let me select a QC file. In my case, I will just select the one we had right now. And now you can see that, hey, suddenly there is this here. You can now see that there is actually the skin families, there's body groups, because these are the newest features, but we will come to that in a short thing. Instead, in the materials tab, you now also have the override materials button, which you can use to, well, rename the material in the MDL. So it will write the rename material file to the QC file before compiling. Let's say you have this material on the weapon, but in game you want it to be something else. So you can now do model/cooler material. And then you see that this line will be written to the file. If you don't like it, but you have entered stuff already, just disable it and it works. Well, yeah. So let's get to the other two features, which for one is the new tab here. You can now actually, in the mod compiler, before there was just one thingy and it was really simple, you can now actually enter the entire mod. For example, we say deviation thingy, and we can say replaces devotion with Minecraft pickaxe, for example, version 2.69.2. And you can actually change the mod loading priority. I have limited this to -5 and 40 because I thought you don't really need more. But yeah, then there's pre-compilation steps, which you can toggle. They do exactly what they say. They override CD materials. They include the RPEX or not. They override max words. I also just found out that I have made a little spelling mistake there. We'll fix that. And then if you are done with this and you have exported it in the export tab here on source tools, you press compile mod, and then it compiles this QC file. That is as long as you have actually properly, if you go into the add-ons, you can see you can actually properly set up your stuff here. If you have done that, then it's fine. You can actually also update perimeter in there now, but that's a different thing. But yeah, you see this is kind of fine. It then compiles the mod, puts it in the folder, and immediately starts North Star for you to test it. Now, what are these two tabs? Well, for one, in QC file management, there are a couple buttons hidden here that I have not enabled right now because I don't plan on shipping them yet. But there is, for one thing, there is now this experimental import attachments button. It's basically visualizing attachments in Blender. It's not exporting them. So you cannot yet export the new attachment points. Like you cannot move them and export them to the QC file. They are just for visualizing, but I can show you that. If I press it, they will now be imported. Sadly, this thing had none, so it doesn't work. Then there is also skin families now. You can change the names of the texture group name. And you can, I made this collapsible because it's mostly a lot. You can now make this. And then when you are done making stuff here, you press on write groups and it writes these things to the QC file. You can also add materials here and do stuff, or just say, hey, I don't want this line, I can delete them. Yeah, then write groups and it writes them to the QC file. Amazing thing. It just makes it so much easier because most of the time you go to the QC file and do stuff and go back, and like this, it's just all in one place. But there's also the QC body group manager now, which is also another massive feature, I think. Basically, this enables you to write new body groups straight from Blender. You can see all the things that are in body groups. Let's say I want to add a body group like cool group. I can add this. I can then add a new mesh, mesh.smt. I can also go into this body group and remove this. And if I have renamed this to something like rename that, I can rename it. And then if I'm done here, I press write body groups. I can actually press that and it will work. And yeah, this now happened because, well, small error, but don't worry about this. That's my issue. Sorry. But yeah, that's basically it. So that's all Parameter has as new features now, or revamped features is basically all that it does. There's also now still this button, but well, actually I can't show you what this does. It's not gonna take long. So what you do here is you can select a folder. For example, I have mine here, which is TF2 Mats, and there's this folder materials, which is basically a folder of all materials in game that I have dumped. Like I can show you this, there's like images in there. There will be a tutorial on how to make this in the docs once I'm done with it, but you select this folder and then it has them here. And let's say you select a mesh that you know you have the texture dumped of. In my case, for example, this attachment. You can now just press setup shader for material and it will set up the internal shader for that material and be done with it. You can also, if you don't want to set up the entire shader, make it diffuse only, and then it will set up the shader with only the diffuse map. That's a bit more performant, but and just visualizes stuff. So yeah, I guess that's it. That's Parameter 2.0 in a couple minutes. See ya.